and welcome to Trek Central Weekly. I'm your host, Commander Dom Paris, and we are here to discuss the latest Star Trek Picard Season 3 episode, 17 Seconds. It was a fantastic episode with some interesting reveals, and we have some fantastic co-hosts to discuss this episode with. So joining me, as usual, we have Favre back from the Trek cruise. How are you?
Howdy. I am fantastic. I'm a bit tired. I'm a bit cruised out. Went pretty hard, partying with my Trekkie family for a few days. But yeah, it was a ton of fun, and I am very excited to be here talking about some Star Trek Picard as well. So
very nice.
Very
and
good.
Joining us for the first time on our live streams, who has previously voiced some of our videos, is Nick. Nick, how are you doing? And you were also on the Trek cruise, so how was that for you?
Yeah. It was good. Also kind of cruised out. I'm just gonna sleep for the next 10 days.
That's fair enough. But yeah, one thing I do want to talk about with the cruise is the fact that Todd Stashwick, who plays Captain Liam Shaw in Star Trek Picard Season 3, was there. What was it kind of like seeing this person who you only were introduced to, like, was it 8 days before the cruise started, and just seeing him there? Favre?
Yeah, I mean, that was a very pleasant surprise. There was kind of a disappointment going into the cruise because one of the guests, John Billingsley of Star Trek Enterprise, was a late cancellation. He came down under the weather with something, was sick, and so out of caution decided not to go. So I was kind of bummed out because he's such a fun dude, and there was a very infamous incident at the Star Trek Enterprise panel in the previous year's cruise that people might have heard about that involved John Billingsley. But yeah, he's a funny dude. He's a riot. So I was bummed he wasn't going to be there. But then when they had the show on the first night on the main theater stage, and they did kind of the cast introduction, they said, "Oh, look, we have a special surprise. Here is Todd Stashwick, fresh off of Star Trek Picard Season 3. So that was a really, really fun moment because, yeah, it was just barely a week after the Season 3 premiere. We were just starting to get to know this character. The whole fandom kind of seems to be really, really intrigued by him. Either, people love him,
Yes.
people hate him, but he's definitely stirring the pot, And then Todd Stashwick in person, he's just such a casually hilarious dude. He is so funny. Just everything he says is hilarious. He's a hardcore nerd. He has Star Trek tattoos. He's a huge fan. He's very excited to be part of this community. I'm so hyped just to know that we're going to have him, years and years of this on the convention circuit and everything. He'll always be part of the Star Trek family now. So yeah, just a very, very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, definitely. And, John Billingsley as well is a very humorous person at these conventions. So it is kind of nice that we had someone to somewhat take that role. Nick, people in chat are saying that your sound is low. I think I have elevated your sound, my side. But if people in chat could let us know.
I turned it up over here as well. Maybe
that's good. So yes, let us know in chat if that's good. But yeah, Nick, how was Todd Stashwick? And also, did you see any of the? I think they had a museum exhibit of Picard Season 3 stuff on the cruise. Did you see that?
I did. Stashwick was great. Funny, hilarious. So yeah, having Billingsley gone and having him take his place was kind of nice fill in. I did go up to, it's called the Lightspeed Art Gallery or something. Started talking with one of the art directors up there. There's a big piece when you walk in. It has 63 different actors' signatures on it, and he was talking about how Avery Brooks hasn't signed in 10 years and he's on it, and basically it's $14,000. It's no thank you.
That's 7 cruises.
Yeah.
Which really puts it into perspective. Yes, I think your voice is fine now.
Good now? Okay, good.
Yes. If you could turn it up a little bit more, because I've turned you as high as possibly on my side.
I'll just break everyone's eardrums today. That is fine.
Yes.
Or just yell at us the whole time.
Great, I can do that.
But yeah, did either of you get to see the latest episode? Because they, as in on the cruise, because I heard that they showed it on the cruise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a typical thing. This was the third cruise I've been on, and ever since cruise number 2, when they kind of messed up and didn't have like the new episode of Discovery ready to go, they were like, "Oh, we have to make sure we never do this again." And they've always shown whatever you would have caught, if you were on the mainland United States with Paramount Plus. They presented. It was kind of cool last year because they had a new episode of Discovery and the Picard premiere both to show us.
Oh wow!
But yeah, they did do that in the theater, and I'm sure it looked gorgeous. All those beautiful ship shots, are so cinematic and deserve to be presented on a big screen. I sadly was busy and unable to see the episode that way, and I'd already watched it, but it was still cool that it got like that big presentation like that, and they always do that. So
yeah, and I heard it was also like Todd Stashwick came up on stage and introduced it. So it's great that he's having that interaction with fans, and as a character, he's a very love him or hate him. I've seen some very interesting fan art of his character already.
Already?
Yeah.
Oh, that didn't take long.
Like body pillows and that kind of stuff. It's fascinating.
Okay. I'm surprised, but I feel like I shouldn't be.
You shouldn't be surprised. It's the internet. But yeah, Nick, did you manage to get to watch it?
I chose not to, just because my experience watching the premiere of season 2 Picard on the last cruise was a little not as enjoyable, just because everyone's got their comments, they're really excited, and I was just like, I'd rather just watch this on my own in a more quiet setting.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Because that struck as my plan, because I was going to ask, because in one of the scenes has Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes de-aged, and I wanted to know how that was received on a big screen compared to on our laptops, on our TVs, whatever. But I guess I have to ask, with that scene, how did you find de-aged Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Frakes? Did you notice it? Did you not notice it? Nick, we'll start with you.
I didn't notice it on Picard.
Okay.
I did notice it on Frakes. I was like, wait a minute, something seems weird.
Fair enough. Because, I saw some comparison pictures between Picard de-aged in this and him de-aged in one of the X-Men movies. And you can tell how far this technology has come, because it looks atrocious in the X-Men movie. You can really tell that it's just smooth Patrick Stewart. Doesn't look the best.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I thought
weird.
this one looked really well. I didn't really notice it until I watched it for a second time.
I noticed it more on Riker, and I tend to be pretty forgiving on the de-aging. Like I think the stuff they did in Picard season 1 holds up and looks really good. That they did with Brent and Patrick. The stuff with Jonathan Frakes, though, his eyes looked a little cartoony. I've only watched it on my laptop, though. I need to now, that because I've been traveling. Now that I'm back home, I need to watch it on the TV and see what it looks like there. But yeah, I thought it was a little peculiar. I also thought, like, oh look, yet another uniform for the 2380s. That's just the decade, like Starfleet was just like, we're just gonna have as many uniforms as possible
in the uniform. So that's why I'm wearing this uniform, which is 2385 instead of the season 3 uniform, because one thing I did kind of like headcanon with that uniform is that it looks like an in-between of the First Contact uniforms and this style of uniform. You still have this kind of like pattern on it. So I just thought it was somewhat like an off-duty uniform for the Titan. Who knows? But yeah, 2380 has a lot of uniforms.
And if that's Thad's birth, or shortly after Thad's birth, then that means the year is 2381. So it's the same time as Lower Decks season 2 and season 3, which means that
it's the same time as Lower Decks season 3, because season 2 still takes place in 2380.
No, I think it's 2 and 3 that are the same year in 81. Because
believe one of the producers said that only in season 3 does it go into 2381.
I think they made a mistake then, because in
They've
season
made
2,
a lot
you
of
see
mistakes. Yes.
Rutherford has the memory of New Year's Day on
Yes.
2381.
They brought
We're probably
that up.
like chasing this rabbit too far of what year this is, but
I
I just wanted to point out that the
Yes.
lower decks,
It's just me being
the
pedantic.
Cerritos, the California class uniforms that Boimler and Mariner and everyone wears on that show, those would also be in use at the same time as
Yes.
the Picard season 1 flashbacks and the First Contact black and grays. Not to mention, in 2 more years, Prodigy will have those slightly all good things looking uniforms. So
Yes, there's a lot of uniforms there. But what also is pointed out in that scene is Riker refers to Picard as Admiral. So it is when he has been promoted to Admiral and made leader of the Romulan relocation effort. So we do kind of have that. We also had a small cameo from Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi in that scene. Nick, what did you think of that?
I can't say I'm a fan so far. It didn't feel like Deanna very much.
At the beginning, it felt like Deanna, but I think Marina's accent very much leaked through near the end, and talking about, Thaddeus throwing up in engineering. It very much had that Cockney style to it.
It did,
Which, is a shame. I guess she just, did that. She probably was doing that in a room by herself and not playing it against, Riker or Picard. So that
I
probably
feel like
didn't help.
ever since she was drunk Deanna in Star Trek First Contact, everything she's done, like from that point onward, like she's had a harder time being consistent with the accent than when she was, like on TNG for 7 years and, shooting all year, every year, and having to do it all the time. I think she kind of either it was too hard to get back into it, or she just, I don't know, wasn't as used to it as she used to be.
Yeah, definitely. And that there's some interesting things about accents in this episode, and I guess that's a good segue into Picard and Beverly, and talking about the revelation last episode, the wordless revelation last episode, which was amazing. That Picard has a son, and that son is the good old English accented Jack Crusher, because he went to a boarding school in London.
Apparently.
Or it is genetic, who knows. But yeah, Favre, what did you think of this scene with now not just having the wordless exchange in episode 2, but going into this one and having a full-on explanation about why Beverly kept Jack away from Picard?
Sure. I mean, that was such an important scene. There was a huge build-up to it after the last 2 episodes, and it's kind of one of those moments that they really had to pull off for the rest of their story, wherever it's going to go to work, to be able to carry the audience along with them. So it was very well acted. It is some pretty heavy things that if you showed me these ideas on paper, I don't know if I would have thought they were necessarily good, but just the execution of it, Gates McFadden, just phenomenal work from her, and such a breath of fresh air to her, post TNG Star Trek work. She was always sidelined in those TNG movies. So it's just really cool to see her be this important factor in the story, in the focus and the spotlight. And her explanation, is it something that I believe? Is it something I agree with? I mean, I don't know. These are all like questions I'm still grappling with, but I believed it. She sold it to me. Okay, I believe like this mother would do this in the situation. And Patrick Stewart, you couldn't ask for a better actor for someone to bounce a scene off of, and he was able to resonate all those emotions too. And it was really a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. And Nick, did you believe Beverly's points that she was making? Were they valid points? How did you view Beverly after that exchange between the two?
valid, maybe from the standpoint of a mother. I wouldn't know, but I feel like he could have used a choice, but then where would we have our story for season 3?
Yes, very much. And I think I can definitely buy into the decision that Beverly made. Was it a perfect decision? No, but it's a very human decision. I find.
When you look back at TNG, though, was Picard's life really in danger all that much? It wasn't until like I don't know. I feel like after the show, maybe it ramped up a bit. So I didn't see the reasoning behind that. So I don't know.
But all the stuff she was talking about, it was all things that involved, Romulans and the whole relocation thing that happened between Nemesis and Picard season 1. There's kind of like this big epic story. It's almost like there is a TV show that took place there, like we never see, and we're now we're just only seeing like the sequel to that. But I think one thing they've done really well throughout season 3, though, is they don't forget the history of Picard seasons 1 and 2, even though those aren't as popular as the other things that they're trying to connect to. They still use those things when there's opportunities and when they need something like this. Like why would Picard's life suddenly be in danger all the time? So they were able to take something that probably was never originally intended to be incorporated into a story of Picard's long lost secret son, back when the season 1 writers were coming up with all the Romulan supernova stuff.
Yeah, definitely. We just got a super chat of, I think, $5 Canadian. I think that's Canadian dollars, from Good Tea Nice House. And yes, we will be getting to Worf, who said, shouldn't Deanna be going through the phase that her mother went through in TNG at this point in Picard? Maybe that's what Riker was running from.
A good theory.
She did remind me of Lwaxana in that scene, though. I thought she looked and kind of behaved a bit more like Lwaxana than the traditional counselor Troy.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but it is quite interesting now that you bring it up and this person brings it up. So thank you for that super chat. Yeah, well, I was trying to say something about the Picard and Beverly scene, which was one thing which I did really, really like, which as that scene goes on, the distance between Picard and Beverly shrinks. At the very beginning of that conversation, they're like 2 beds apart. Picard is sitting on one of the beds, quite open, whereas Beverly is almost hiding behind one of them, and quite closed off. And as the conversation goes, they get closer and closer to each other, almost rebuilding that bridge which they had lost and burnt for the past 20 years. So I thought, from a storytelling and episode TV series area, that bit was fantastic and really sold what they were going through. So it is fascinating how we do have these extra facets to help enhance what is being told and it isn't just dialogue, it is all these different things working together. But yeah, is there anything else about Picard and Beverly either of you want to touch up on?
I guess just people who know me or who follow my show, the Text Trek podcast and YouTube channel, but the thing that I had talked about for a long time was just that I really did not want David Marcus the next generation. I didn't want Picard and Beverly to have a secret love child that no one knew about all these years. And yeah, just it's derivative, it's kind of soap opera-y, but the acting in the show has just been so damn good that it's kind of like the moment in episode 2 of season 3 when Picard tells Shaw he's my son, and just Shaw just kind of gives up and concedes. It's like okay, y'all won me over. I'm like Shaw. And so yeah, I can't believe that I enjoyed the stuff as much as I have. But yeah, I like Jack. I like this new dynamic, this very very Sparks heavy uh, dimension between Beverly and Picard now, and yeah, it's one of the things I've enjoyed most about the show that I never expected I would like. So I'm really eager to see where it goes next.
Yeah, so one thing I was reminded of, which I wanted to bring up earlier, was I was reading one of the old Star Trek magazines around the time of Star Trek Nemesis, and in it there was an interview with Patrick Stewart, and he said that before Shinzon was conceived as a concept, it wasn't going to be Picard's clone, but it was going to be Picard's son. And he was like, I don't want that, because having
No.
Picard's son come as a villain is less interesting than having Picard himself be his own villain, which I agree with that.
Makes sense.
But it's just interesting how, you had no, I definitely don't want a son for Picard in that concept, in that vein, and then have it here in which I think it's executed as well as it can be.
But then you also still kind of have his new son kind of being portrayed as a villain or vigilante.
Yes.
So,
but we do know at least, I think it was in episode 2, where he was, it was in episode 2 where he was saying how he does these things to provide medical aid to people. So even though he does, maybe steal from places, con some places, he does it to get medical supplies. So he's
like Robin Hood.
Yeah.
He's a criminal humanitarian.
Yeah, and Beverly also has seemingly joined ranks as a criminal humanitarian.
I mean, I guess if you're going to just, go into hiding and not contact anyone for 20 plus years.
Yeah. But
I think it'd be really hard to do that, by the way. Like I think just now, could I ghost someone that hard? I just disappear off the face of the earth. I feel like even today in 2023, people would still be able to track me down if they really wanted to bad enough.
If they really wanted to, but it also depends how they ended, because it sounded like, well, in previous episodes it sounded like Picard and Beverly had a bad split. We find out in this episode that they broke off their romantic relationship for the 5th time. But it didn't sound like over an argument, unless that's just how I interpreted it.
no, it sounded like it was more like just because he was on another mission, being called away yet again. So that sounded like what ended it.
That sounded like what they were implying. Yeah.
Although you would think if you were constantly being attacked by all these, Remans and Romulan rebels and
I like
and
that
whatnot.
they brought back Remans. Just a mention.
Yeah.
Because,
I'd love to see one, but yeah, that's cool to just have them name drop there. But you would think if you're experiencing that, and then all of a sudden your on again off again girlfriend just vanishes. You think you would probably be like, oh, we should probably send Starfleet security to investigate this and go find her.
That is a good point.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a good point. But I guess he just didn't want to use his resources of Starfleet to stalk his ex-girlfriend. Because
maybe
Sorry, is she not in Starfleet anymore? Or
no,
is that
I
addressed?
don't think she's in. It hasn't been addressed yet. But it seems that she's not in Starfleet. I think it was Doug Drexler said on his Facebook page when talking about the Ilios, he said that she resigned her commission and she pulled some strings at Starfleet Medical to get that ship. And I would assume that if she was still in Starfleet, she would have the resources instead of having to con people to get the medical supplies. So I think it's implied that she's not in Starfleet right now.
Yeah. It seems to be a civilian ship.
Yeah, I mean, it's SS and it has an NAR registry. So yeah, there's a lot of other things to discuss in this episode. Like when I was writing the review for this episode, it was 2 hours later after writing the review, and I was like, how is there so much in this episode? I think it was 54 minutes long, probably our longest of this season. But I think we have to talk about the thing which the thumbnail and the title is about, and that is Worf. We got Worf appearing.
Yeah.
Last episode, briefly. And then we have his reintroduction here. So, Nick, are you a Worf fan? And if so,
Oh, of course.
did you
Absolutely.
like his introduction here and sort of his redevelopment here?
I'm kind of interested to see why they chose him to be with like the plot of Raffi and not with the rest of the cast, and will they eventually join up together? I'm still not seeing the correlation between the two yet, so I'm excited to see later on.
Yeah, and what did you think about now that Worf has worked on himself and seemingly become a better person? Do you like what Worf has become so far?
I would say yes, but it's still pretty early. I was a little confused why they kind of made it seem like he used to be so violent and angry and like killing everyone. But we saw him with a pretty even temperament most of the time, I feel like. So I was a little confused.
Yeah, Favre, what did you think about Worf?
I was so excited to see him. Just that was when I first saw the Picard season 3 announcement trailer way back on First Contact Day last year. And, it was like all the TNG cast was returning. You start seeing all the names, Marina Sirtis, LeVar Burton, Jonathan Frakes. I got such a huge just wave of excitement when it said Michael Dorn, and knowing that we would have Worf on screen again. I grew up a huge fan of DS9, and he became my favorite character when he started showing up in DS9. He usurped Spock as my childhood favorite, so he was a big deal for me growing up, and I never pictured this kind of evolution, this trajectory that they would take him on, but I find it incredibly fascinating. The more chill Worf, the Worf who has become more comfortable with the human part of his identity. He always had to be the Klingon who tried harder to be the true, pure Klingon, and
even more than Klingons who had grown up on Cronus. Right. He was much more, this is my tradition, than they were.
And in a lot of ways, it made him a better person because he was more genuine with his honor and more of a true believer to those ideals. Whereas, we saw a lot of corruption among other Klingons, but he had this chip on his shoulder being the Starfleet Klingon who grew up on Earth in Russia. So to see him now be so comfortable with his human heritage that he's incorporated that into his title when he has, that cool House of Targaryen, Game of Thrones type title.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's son of Sergei,
House Rosinko. So and he's not listening to Klingon opera, he's listening to some of Picard's opera. So it's it's okay for me to be a little human sometimes. That doesn't make me any less of a Klingon. Just the fact that he's that bit of growth, that it's conveyed so subtly and it comes off as organic. It's something I never knew I needed to see, but now I'm so glad that I know that there's a lot more to Worf. He had a lot more life after DS9 and Nemesis.
Yeah, and it is very nice to see that. And I think, I used to really love Worf, and then I watched it with, I watched DS9 with a friend of mine for the first time. It was their first time. And they were like, Worf kind of sucks. And I was like, what? Why would you say that?
What do you mean?
And then they brought up some points, and then I was like, I kind of agree with you. In just how he's portrayed. He's not the best father figure. He makes sure that his son stares at the corpse of his mum after she's been murdered. He's not the best partner. He's very jealous about Jadzia and her former partners. But I found that very human of him, that he had those character flaws, and I really do love that he's grown as a person and worked on himself, like he says.
He needed it. He needed to work on himself. Yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoy Worf here. Like you said, I really enjoyed his whole title sequence of just speaking all his names and titles, and then just ending it with, I've made chamomile tea. Though I will judge him for the fact that he asks if Raffi wants sugar, with her chamomile tea. That just doesn't work, but, you know, I can live with it. It's Worf.
Well, why doesn't that work? Is this an English thing?
I just think sugar and chamomile tea just is weird.
Chamomile's already pretty sweet.
Yeah.
You don't,
Okay.
you don't need
And
it.
also-
I don't drink it, so.
Chamomile is a very, like, calming tea, so then to add sugar in it is kind of defeating the point, in my opinion.
Counterproductive.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I mean, I'm in Texas, so, you know, my tea is always served sweet and on ice, but...
There you go.
Yes. But yeah, I actually really do enjoy the Raffi and Worf pairing, because even though he wasn't always as angry as he claims he was, he still had that anger to him, and he still had that very strange relationship with his family. And I think that contrasts really well with Raffi. And we've seen her be very angry at the world and herself, and have that strange relationship with her family. So I think pairing them together is quite brilliant. And also bringing in Raffi's backstory of, she used to be a Starfleet intelligence operative, and having that in season 3, not just in the backstory of season 1, but actually in the active story of season 3, is, I think, excellent. And it's building on what we've seen in previous seasons, which...
Right, yeah,
it's
more like what I was talking about. But, you know, as people are treating this like it is a, fifth TNG movie,
Yes.
right? And yeah, it kind of is like this big epic 10-hour fifth TNG movie, but it is still Picard season 3. It is still very much, you know, a continuation of those things they set up in those first 2 seasons. And yeah, it's another great thing I never knew I needed to see. But yeah, Raffi and Worf, I never knew they would be like, you know, this cool cop duo. But yeah, it's just been a ton of fun to watch them.
Yeah, I know. I put out an article on Trek Central on, I think, Friday, which a lot of people got very mad at, which was comparing season 1 of Picard to season 3 of Picard, because there's a lot of similarities. From the fact of a conspiracy with an old enemy, from the Romulans to the changelings. You have something involving Daystrom with a terror attack, the A500 Simps in season 1 on the attack on Mars, and then the quantum tunneling device on the Starfleet recruitment building. There's a lot of things there. And also then you have a repeat of Raffi's arc as a character from season 1 to season 3. In season 1, she meets Gabe, her son, and Gabe is like, say the conspiracy was false and maybe you can be my mum again. And she can't. And in season 3, she meets her ex-husband, Jay, and he's like, okay, I can give you Sneed, or you can give up the conspiracy and you can start being part of our family. I do think how season 3 is bringing in a lot of backstory stuff into the active story, like I said, just makes it work way better. But yeah, people got angry that I compared those two things, but I thought those comparisons work, so I was quite proud of that. But there is a lot. I mean, we're already 40 minutes into this discussion.
Are we?
Yeah, time flies when you talk about Picard season 3. And there's a lot of stuff we still haven't talked about, like Picard and Riker arguing on the bridge, which was something that a lot of people discussed over the week since that episode. So Favri, what did you think of Picard and Riker having it out on the bridge and disagreeing with each other? Because it's something we haven't really seen before.
No, but it's something that I think was always promised, and I mentioned it on my show, and we were discussing this episode, but Encounter at Farpoint, it kind of sets up that Kirk and Decker dynamic from the motion picture with Riker and Picard, where, you know, okay, this guy is your first officer, but he is totally qualified to command a starship. And that whole notion of, you know, when they kind of harp on like, oh, well, you know, you stopped the captain of the Hood from beaming down on this one mission and stuff. So, you know, it kind of set up, there's always this idea, this potential of a conflict between Riker and Picard when Riker might, you know, want to go against the captain or something like that, or maybe Picard would be out of line. And so, yeah, it took them a very, very long time for something set up in the first appearance of these episodes. But we finally get it here. And it's something that, Gene Roddenberry probably wouldn't have wanted on TNG, just that his mindset in the late 80s was he didn't want conflict between his characters. But, it is so juicy and more great acting. I got to just praise Jonathan Frakes has been phenomenal. Season 3, and it's some of the best Riker material ever, I think.
And the fact that this episode was directed by Frakes and he directed himself so well is just a testament to him being a great director. And they're looking for a director for Star Trek 4. Just get Frakes. He's proved that he can do another movie.
Just let him do everything.
Let him do it, because they're having so much issues with Trek directors, and it's like Frakes is right there.
Does LeVar Burton want to do any?
Yeah, LeVar Burton want to do any
more directing? People forget he did a lot of really good work on DS9 and Voyager and Enterprise.
Did he?
Yeah,
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, he directed a couple of episodes. I'm trying to remember which ones, but they were very good episodes.
And some of the more ambitious, and I would even say artful episodes.
Yeah, so it would be great to get LeVar directing for one of these new Star Trek episodes, maybe a movie, who knows. But yeah, Nick, what did you think of Riker and Picard having it out on the bridge?
Felt a little intense and uncomfortable. Like, that's not something we've ever gotten to see before, obviously. In TNG, they were always companions, buddies, just getting along together. So I'm excited to see what episode 4 is going to bring between them, because it's still obviously not resolved. They're falling into a gravity well. So
definitely. And one thing I think was fascinating about that is Picard, as we know, in his career has never been a first officer. On the Stargazer, he skipped straight to captain. He has never been in that first officer position. He's always been either following orders as like someone on the bridge or giving the orders as captain. He's never been first officer questioning orders. So I think that once I realized that, I was like, oh, that's actually interesting. That recolors and recontextualizes my thoughts on this episode, and particularly those scenes, because I was like, this kind of seems a little bit weird, and then I was like, oh, actually, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Picard is very sure of what the right option is because he's been captain for so long. He hasn't been in a position to offer alternatives, and when he's so sure about what should be done, he's going to forcefully offer that alternative and be like, this is what we have to do.
And both these men think the other one is compromised by his emotions, because Riker is like, no, Picard, you're being too aggressive because these people are coming after your son. I get it, like you want to protect him by destroying them. And Picard is thinking with Riker, he's like, no, you're being too cowardly because you're scared after you lost your son. You don't want to take any like bold moves, and just like the way Riker reacted. Riker is like super pissed by the end of this episode. But I mean, like, you can't bring up this guy's like dead son to him at work and expect him not to blow up in your face. Like, you're kind of out of line there, John Luke. So I think it was understandable.
Yeah, and it was so fascinating that this episode has such a variety of Frakes and Riker. You have Riker talking to Jack and being like, I watched your parents for 20 years cook you up. It's just like, that's great, you can call me captain. And then you go from that stuff all the way to, you are out of line, you've killed us all. Is so fascinating, but it works so well, and you can see how it changes throughout the episode. So there's a lot of stuff there. There's also, I guess, there's just so much stuff in this episode.
There is, yeah.
Because we have to talk about changelings and the goo, the more fleshy
the
goo.
Goo people.
Nick, did you think changelings were going to be a thing going into this season?
Absolutely not. Why would I think that at all?
I mean, yes, that's fair enough.
Curveball. My fiance and I were watching. He thought it was Suliban. I was like, wait, what? What? No way. and then end up being.
I mean,
Changelings,
Suliban would also be
so.
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they might show up too. There's still several
know.
more episodes, so.
Yeah. It could be just all the shapeshifters in the galaxy out against Federation. Bring some Vendorians in there. The one from Undiscovered Country. Just all the changelings. It's a big changeling conspiracy.
Yeah, Cameloid.
Yeah.
Does that mean more Vorta coming? If there's changelings around?
I mean, I don't think so.
No.
There had to be a Vorta send that email to Worf for Odo though, right? Like someone had to actually arrange
Yes.
that, So.
Yes. It is nice that we did get that little Odo reference of, a man within the link who has great honor contacted me and told me, hey, there's a splinter group that didn't like I was preaching peace and they want war. But I don't think we will see the Dominion. And I was talking about this in our Discord server about people, because people were being like, hey, do you think we'll see the Dominion? And my theory is more that these offshoot we've got a super chat, which I'll come back to that. But
Thank you.
Super chat by Total Anthony for £1.99 said it's John Luke, not John Luke. It's just us being bad at saying names. We'll try and say his name better. But thank you.
Luck Pickard it is.
Yes.
There you go.
John Luck Pickard. So thank you very much for that. As always, your super chats really help the channel continue to do these live streams, to do these reviews and all the other content which we come out with. So we very much we very much thank you for your support, and we thank everyone in chat just for talking. We haven't addressed chat that much this stream because there's just been so much to talk about. But as always, we thank you for being here. There is a poll in the chat of your favorite scene or favorite aspect of this episode from Beverly and Picard, Gooey Changelings, Worf's jokes, and Thinking with Portals. I do want to go back to the Dominion in the fact that I view that these offshoot changelings are viewed by the Dominion as kind of like Lucifer, like cast out gods in a sense. Because I think they would
the
more,
Wraiths.
yeah, I think they would more be like, okay, all the other changelings that we do view as gods are still chilling in their gooey planet, in the Great Link, and these ones have just left. They're outcasts. We're not going to follow them. We'll follow Odo and those people. So I don't think there will be Dominion. It could be surprised. We could see Jeffrey Combs back as Wayun 27 or whatever he's up to in 2401. I mean, they were like, oh, he's the last Wayun, but he came from the Gamma Quadrant. I'm sure there's more Wayuns in the Gamma Quadrant. But, we'll have to see. I definitely didn't... Because a lot of people theorized that this big conspiracy was going to be the conspiracy aliens... what are they called? Bluegills? Yeah, Bluegills. A lot of people theorized
the conspiracy bugs.
The conspiracy bugs. But I definitely think bringing in the changelings and having it tie into Deep Space Nine works way better than the conspiracy bugs. And especially tying in Worf, because then Worf on his own, doing his own thing, getting that contact from Odo, that makes sense. But if Odo contacted anyone else in the TNG crew, that wouldn't make sense. So it's a great way to
he
introduce them all.
Yeah, he'd go to the dude that he knows. But I don't think it's just going to be the changelings are back and they want to fight the Federation. I think it's going to be more than that, because that just seems like such an odd choice to do this final season of Picard and this big send-off for the TNG cast, and have some closure for the character of Jean-Luc Picard himself. It just seems really weird to be like, okay, let's go use the big bad guys from DS9. So I think that it's going to turn out to be, it's like changelings plus other people. We know Lore will show up eventually. But yeah, I think it's going to be I would love to see like a variety of just different things that have existed throughout the Star Trek universe. Just, there's so many nasty threats out there. What if they all kind of got together, like the Legion of Doom and Super Friends, and all tried to, throw their forces in together for one big attack? I think that'd be a pretty deadly enemy to go up against.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, Nick, is there anything else you want to bring up with the changelings, with the new goo visuals? Anything?
They're very gooey.
Yeah,
this time. Yeah, I think they look weird.
They do look weird because, we're kind of used to them being like bronze-like liquid, and this is very much more flesh in.
They
a
almost
puddle.
look like melting ice cream or something before. Now they just look like it's just like grounded up blood and gore.
Yeah, so, we'll see how the season progresses with the changelings. I really want them to bring back, I think it's Lass from DS9, one of the changeling hundreds.
I loved him.
Yeah,
but I guess spoilers for DS9 season 7, but when that character appears is one episode, but doesn't he probably get changeling aids from Odo? And does he ever learn about the cure or anything?
That's a good point. But did Odo have the illness when he
did?
He did.
Because he's the one that gave it to all of them.
Yeah, no, but did he have it when Lass was introduced?
He was still asymptomatic, but he is probably transmittable. I came up with a good theory on how maybe that doesn't work out too bad for Lass in the end, but people have to go listen to the Text Trek episode where we discussed the DS9 season 7 to find out.
Because I would really, if Lass found a way to reverse the Section 31 illness, I would really like him to be the big bad, because he has a reason to hate solids. He continued to hate solids. His dream was to find the other 100 and make a new Great Link. And he probably saw that the Dominion lost. He was like, well, I guess I'll do it myself.
Like Thanos in Age of Ultron. I think J.G. Hertzler could absolutely pull that off. I think he just has so much presence. A lot of people forget. Oh yeah, that dude was played by General Martok, J.G. Hertzler. I think he could be the big bad.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're getting J.G. Hertzler back for Lass, you at least need a cameo of Martok. I mean, if he's there, you have to have Martok appear.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be in the same scene. They can do a co-starring Jeffrey Combs as Brunt and Weyoun. Like they did in that one DS9 episode.
And obviously we had Brunt mentioned in the personnel file of Sneed last episode, so they could be, teasing a return of Brunt. Yeah. But we are coming up on an hour, so I will slightly pivot us to the other big news of the week, which we do kind of need to address, and that is that Discovery is ending with its 5th season. It's going to come out next year. It will have lasted 7 years since 2017. That's, as long as the Next Generation, but at least we didn't have to keep all the actors from their children to make the series. But yeah, Favri, what do you think of Discovery ending? And they're going to do some extra episodes to tie the series together. But as someone who was on the cruise and basically heard about it the same time as a lot of the actors heard about it, which isn't the best, but it is. Yeah,
I was. What was that? I was wondering where Doug Jones was when that news. I mean, Doug Jones is number 2 on the call sheet, so I'm sure he at least got a phone call ahead of time. But it was definitely big news. I wasn't totally surprised. I've been following the production of Discovery its whole lifespan. That's when I started. I started my show back when that show was in pre-production. And season 5, it was the first season where I was like, okay, there's a good shot it might end here. And I was hearing different things. I was hearing things from, Sonequa Martin Green and showrunner Michelle Paradise saying like, yeah, I mean, like, we're not even, we're not even talking about like ending things now. So, we're even setting stuff up for season 6 and season 5. But then I was also hearing, it's not just Paramount Plus, it's all streaming platforms right now, but there's a lot of people are tightening their belts. People are trying to slash spending this year. There's going to be a lot of cuts and, high budget streaming shows. And so I think they're developing one of these proposed shows to replace Picard and Discovery. It will come out, and I think they just we're going to have to make the decision. Okay, do we do a Discovery season 6 or do we do a new show? And with given that choice, personally, I would ask for both. But if I couldn't do both, I probably would pick a new show, especially if they're going to shoot more content to make season 5 a big ending. A year is a lot of time. They could arguably add several episodes. They could do like a whole new 3-episode story arc, and at the end of the first 10 they've already shot, or something big like that to wrap it up. So I'm glad that the show is giving this big preparation, kind of a farewell tour. They said they're doing global events with the actors and stuff. They're going to make it a big celebration of the show in early 2024. So bittersweet news, but not surprising, and kind of, I like now that we have a little bit more certainty of what the future of Paramount Plus Star Trek will look like. I'm very confident a new show will be announced this year, because where they're getting rid of Picard, they're getting rid of Discovery, they're making room for something.
So I didn't want to interrupt you, but Terry Matalas is in the chat right now, and he is going
Hi, Terry.
He said that he is going to leak the rest of the season.
Do it.
So that's good. Yeah, episode 304 opens to a shot of space. There we go. But yes, Terry, thanks for joining here. We do look at chat, but this last episode was just a lot to take in. So we've mostly been talking about that. But thank you for being here. And yeah, Nick, what did you think when you heard that Discovery was ending?
Well, I actually heard it. I was in the panel with Connor Trenier doing In the Hot Seat with Doug Jones, and he had just come off of a Zoom call where they had told him hey, it's done. So he was talking
so he
about
did
how
get
they
called. Okay.
Yeah, he was on the ship or whatever that morning. He did say that they might have to go back and reshoot a couple of things to make the ending more cohesive and make more sense. So I don't know if that means more episodes or not. Yeah, I have to agree. It's not very surprising. Just I mean, how many times can the universe be in danger of ending?
Yeah, we'll see what season 5 brings. But yeah, it's definitely not surprising, considering, as Fabi said, a lot of streaming services are suffering right now and looking for things to cut. And I think Discovery, it's gone longer. Someone did some research, and it's one of the longest streaming shows out there. Especially sci-fi. The only other one would be The Expanse with season 6, and that ended in a season 6. I definitely suspected that it was going to end, considering we heard a lot of news of the actors leaving for new positions and new permanent leading roles in different shows. So I'm happy for them that they're going off and doing. They're getting big roles, and we'll see what season 5 brings, and we'll see how they wrap it up all together. I'm someone who really likes Discovery. I think season 4 was amazing. But
season 4 was my favorite of that whole show.
And I think season 4 very much, a lot of what it was talking about very much helped me in what I was dealing with at that time, especially the Kuat Milat stuff. Fantastic. And I think it was someone on the cruise who said, it may not be everyone's Trek, but it is someone's Trek. and that is enough to make it valid and make it a Trek series, and it has that impact on people. Some people on Twitter have been talking about how it's connected with people who might not have connected with Trek before, and for that we have to be thankful. And the fact that it's brought about Picard Season 3, it's brought about all Prodigy, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, all these different series that might not be possible. Who knows what would have happened? So it's a shame, but I hope they can end it in a nice way. Yeah.
But hopefully,
all good things, right?
The good thing about the Star Trek Online game, we do get to continue to see more of these characters and the missions they bring out. So
definitely,
it's not the complete end, maybe.
Yeah, and I very much like how they also, not just the continuing story of those characters, but also some of the backstory of those characters, like especially what they did with Discovery and Lorca, especially in some of those episodes are fantastic. I definitely think I think the best opportunity to spin us off into a new show is probably a Starfleet Academy show. Set it in the 32nd century. They've already set it up in season 4. They can use a lot of the assets from Discovery. If they want a new cost-effective show, that makes sense. And it's a different demographic. So,
you could keep shooting it in Toronto. You know, a lot of your production people you could keep around, and they have an Academy show that's been in development for years. So I mean, there's a lot of groundwork is laid there. Yeah, that would not surprise. I mean, they of course will. They want to do something with Michelle Yeoh. I mean, the logistics, if that's going to ever be possible, is unknown. But I don't think they're ever going to give up trying to do that. It might just be, a limited series or, a streaming-only movie or something like that. But, I think those are both pretty likely. And then a lot of people who worked on Picard, including Terry Batalis here in the live chat, are saying, we got ideas for another 25th century show if people want to keep the party going. So I would love for something like that to.
That'll definitely depend on how season 3 is received and if it causes increase in subscribers and all these business things. Because at the end of the day, it is show business. You do have to keep an eye on the business side, and if Paramount believes that it is a somewhat risk-free investment to make a 21st century show, and then they'll do it. So we'll have to see where it goes. But talking about things ending, we will have to end the stream shortly. So if you have any comments, questions in chat, throw that up now, and we'll see if we can address any of them quickly. Because it's already been over an hour. And I shall end the poll now. And the best part, as voted by the Trek Central live chat of the latest episode, was Worf's jokes. Beheadings are on Wednesdays.
Ah, cool.
And
that's what I voted for. Would you like
some cameo tea? Then we have Beverly and Picard with 33%. Gooey Changelings, which I think I would have voted for. Because I just love that effect. It's gross, and I love how uncomfortable it makes people. And Thinking with Portals, 5%, which we didn't even talk about because there's so many people. Nick, what would you have voted on out of those 4?
The Changelings, for
the
sure.
Changelings, Gooey Changelings. I'm glad we have the same 4 on there. Someone asks, I have a question, when is Nick rapping? Is that a reference to something?
I do have a Borg Queen song / rap, yes.
Okay, well, we'll see if we can get that sometime in the future.
It's already on YouTube. You can just
go
look for it.
Yes.
I'm curious now. I need to look that up.
Yes. If anyone's curious, Nick, where can they find that, and where can they find you? That's a good segue.
On my YouTube channel is the rap. It's Piece by Piece 3, I think.
Yes, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And where can they find you in general?
Oh, on twitch.tv/Piece by Piece.
Very
Tuesdays
nice.
and Thursdays.
Very nice. And Favre, where can people find you if they want to keep up with all your Star Trek discussions?
Sure, you can follow me on Twitter at TXTrek, or subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do a live show that streams every Friday night at 7 p.m. Central, mostly talking about whatever new episode of Trek is out. But if there's no new Trek, we talk about something else. We just wrapped up our series on DS9 with my co-host Dave, who's watching DS9 for the first time. I was watching it for the 47th time. That was a lot of fun, and we're having a great time doing breakdowns of Picard season 3 every week. You can also listen to that show wherever you get your podcast, or like I said, catch us live Fridays on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central.
And as Seven said, that sounded very rehearsed. So thank you. Sounds like you've done it a lot of times.
I've had to say that, especially on the cruise, where people are like, "Oh, how can I keep up with you? How can I find your content?" So yeah,
you just go into
sorry
a 5-minute
if I come off a
spiel.
little
No,
scripted.
It's fine.
Maybe I need a rehearsal like that. I'd have nothing.
Yeah, and as always, you can find me here at Trek Central. Also on Twitter, I just post weird things at Dom D. Paris. I put a recent article out on TrekCentral.net talking about the comparisons between Season 3 and Season 1. I really do love that article. I put a lot of work into that, so if you're interested, look at that. We did just put out a USS Titan A breakdown over on our YouTube channel, which you're on right now. So if you're interested in that, it's narrated by our great narrator. I think he's Lieutenant Commander Adam now. I think he got promoted. And the week before that, we did another Titan video. So maybe next week we'll do another Titan video. Who knows? We'll see if people want it. But it's fantastic to have everyone in live chat talking. Joel says, Dom is lovely. Follow him. Thank you very much. That's the only comment I saw because it said my name. Because it's over there. My phone died. I can't see the chat anymore. But it was lovely to talk with you again, Favre, and lovely for the first time to talk with Nick. Hopefully we can do some more streams in the future, because it's very nice.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. Yes, but as always, we thank you all for being here, and live long and prosper. I need to go to the end stream. Okay, it should be ending.